Have you ever watched or played something that deserved way more financial success and audience appreciation than it ultimately ended up receiving? Yeah, that's Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 is a flat-out great game. Released back in 2016, the Respawn Entertainment title has arguably the best single-player first-person shooter campaign of the previous console generation, as well as containing a rip-roaringly addictive multiplayer mode. In terms of the campaign, the game's narrative was engrossing, expertly paced, filled with terrific action set pieces, and prominently featured awesome mech battles, because punching robots is cool as hell. And when it came to the multiplayer, Titanfall 2 was a fast-paced, fluid affair with plenty of character customization and large-scale robot fights. The game is just fantastic, and through it all, Titanfall 2 was a rare title that could be considered a complete package. It was a game that simultaneously had me satisfied, all while begging for more, like the pathetic sub I am. Yet, even with this praise, Titanfall 2 isn't a story of success. Electronic Arts, which was Titanfall 2's publisher, considered Titanfall 2 to be a sales disappointment. Back in 2016, the title was projected to sell 9 to 10 million units over its lifetime, but despite glowing reviews and very positive word of mouth, the game severely underperformed at release, selling only 385,000 copies during its launch week across several platforms, which is bad. Very bad. These sales were well under Electronic Arts' targeted goal and matched only a quarter of the launch sales of the first Titanfall title, which is a number that is especially sad given that Titanfall 1 was on fewer platforms. It was a disaster. Admittedly, Titanfall 2's sales numbers have improved over time. Over the past few years, the game has sold several million copies, and public interest in the title was rekindled after the success of Respawn Entertainment's 2019 Battle Royale hit Apex Legends, which is a game that takes place within the Titanfall continuity. Yet, with all that being said, the sales numbers still were not good enough. Sure, selling millions of copies of one title is nothing to scoff at, but Titanfall 2 was a big budget blockbuster title that needed to sell more copies than it ultimately did. After all, the AAA video game business has a go big or go home attitude towards its various projects, and unfortunately, Titanfall 2 sales were not big enough. Hence why Titanfall 2 has been relegated to the extensive list of great games that unfortunately launched poorly, just like Okami, or games that aren't too human, because that game sucks. And the sad thing is, Titanfall 2's underwhelming sales could have been prevented if its publisher, Electronic Arts, had actually marketed and sold the game effectively. In fact, let's be perfectly blunt here. Electronic Arts bungled Titanfall 2's release hardcore. Even though the Titanfall IP was a fledgling franchise, EA launched the game in the holiday season of 2016, which was always going to be a tough sell. The September to December release window is always the busiest time of the year for new AAA video game launches, and 2016 was no exception. Holiday 2016, just like every holiday video game season before and after it, was jam-packed with titles vying for the attention of customers and their respective dollars. Some of these major AAA games include Gears of War 4, Forza Horizon 3, Dishonored 2, Civilization 6, Final Fantasy 15, Watch Dogs 2, Dead Rising 4, new 3DS Pokemon games, the launch of the PlayStation Who Gives a Fuck, The Last Guardian, and several other major titles. It was a lot, and due to this blitzkrieg of new video game launches, the holiday season of 2016 just wasn't a good time to release a newer and less established IP that would have a tougher time standing out against the industry's heavy hitters. In other words, it was a bad time to release Titanfall 2. To make matters worse, Titanfall 2's launch was sandwiched between the release of two games that belonged to two already well-established military first-person shooter IPs, and these two titles acted as direct competitors to Titanfall 2. One of these titles was Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, which was released a week after Titanfall 2, and the other was Battlefield 1, which was released a week before Titanfall 2. And between these two very popular and lucrative games, Titanfall 2 never had much of a chance, and Electronic Arts never should have launched the game right next to two IPs that make so much money that it would give Scrooge McDuck a raging boner. If anything, Titanfall 2 really should have been sold in a non-holiday time slot so it could have more room to grow, breathe, and find its footing with an audience. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. Sad face. And what makes Titanfall 2's release window especially galling is the fact that Battlefield 1 was published by Electronic Arts as well, meaning that one of Titanfall 2's primary sales competitors was a title produced by the same publisher. By launching Titanfall 2 so close to Battlefield 1, Electronic Arts essentially sabotaged Titanfall 2's chances of having immediate financial success, which is just a bizarre business move on the part of Electronic Arts. Like, the point of a major video game publisher like Electronic Arts is supposedly to give the games they are producing the best chance to gain profit, yet that is exactly the opposite of what Electronic Arts did with Titanfall 2, because by launching so close to Battlefield 1, the game truly had an unnecessary uphill battle that was manufactured by its own publisher. Good job, EA. Even when you release a good game, you still find a way to fuck it up. And seeing as Electronic Arts failed to properly promote the game, the job to actually market Titanfall 2 has been left to the people that have actually played it and can personally verify its quality. It has been left to the game's committed player base to convince the unconverted as to why Titanfall 2 is still truly worth playing years after its initial release. It is up to the fans to tell you why Titanfall 2 is so damn good. Because Titanfall 2 is incredible and is still worth your time and attention, and what follows is why. Titanfall 2's positive qualities start with its single-player campaign. Unlike the first Titanfall, which was exclusively a multiplayer affair, Titanfall 2 actually has a story mode, and by God, is it great. The action is fluid, the campaign is well paced, the weapons have a weight to them, there are some stunning action set pieces, the wall running and maneuverability make for some dynamic first-person shooter combat, the mech battles fundamentally alter the game, and the narrative is fun and engaging. All of these positive qualities perfectly complement each other and allow Titanfall 2's campaign to be among the best of its genre. The story provides good context for Titanfall 2's gameplay. The plot follows militia rifleman Jack Cooper as he battles the IMC, which are a bunch of corpo-fascist dipshits exploiting human-inhabited frontier worlds in order to accrue power and resources. Because the IMC are a bunch of dicks. In order to better fight these aforementioned human penises, Cooper is training to become a pilot, which is a specialized super soldier that has enhanced mobility, superior combat capabilities, and a neural link with a Titan. With the pilot's suit, Cooper can double jump, wall run, and briefly turn invisible, which are all pretty damn advantageous in combat. However, a pilot's most important attribute is the link to their Titan. Titans are sentient mechs that are armed to the teeth and can change the tide of a battle by just being present. They are equipped with various loadouts and abilities that allow pilots to dominate the battlefield. Against other Titans, the pilot-controlled Titan can engage in an epic kaiju style of battle, and when facing off against mere human grunts, the pilot can use their Titan to sadistically mow down the plebes fleeing from them as if they were controlling an AT-AT from The Empire Strikes Back, which is kind of fucked up, but also kind of awesome as well. Due to their immense combat prowess and their ability to control Titans, Pilots are held in high esteem by pretty much everyone, which is why our main protagonist Cooper trains harder than most to be one. However, Cooper's pilot training regimen is upended when the plot springs into motion. At the start of the game, Cooper is sent with a battalion of his fellow militia comrades in a coordinated attack to strike at the IMC on the front lines. But this mission goes awry to a catastrophic degree. See, the IMC were prepared for the militia's attack, and as a result, our protagonal army was routed, causing Cooper and many of his fellow soldiers to be left behind for dead. Which was not an optimal predicament for Cooper. Good times probably weren't had there. But Cooper survives, and upon waking up from a brief coma, he links with a Titan named BT and acquires some pilot armor. And from there, Cooper and BT embark on a dangerous mission to regroup with militia survivors and stop the IMC from getting their hands on a large-scale superweapon. Phrasing. As you can see, the story is fairly straightforward. There's an obvious objective, the good guys and bad guys are divvied up in a way that lacks much moral ambiguity, and Cooper and BT have some fun and heartwarming character development that actually makes you care about their respective journeys, which is a real rarity in the sci-fi FPS genre where controllable Space Marine characters are often just glorified cameras with legs. Sorry, Master Chief, but you know it's true. However, this narrative simplicity allows you to focus on Titanfall 2's true strength, which is in how it mixes fluid FPS combat with awesome mech battles. In terms of the engaging FPS action, movement is key. Yes, even more so than the game's solid arsenal. As stated before, Cooper's pilot abilities allow him to double jump, run on walls, and activate a cloaking device that all give him a combat advantage. And due to all of these abilities, the FPS action is always a fast-paced affair. In fact, the player must constantly remain in motion in order to excel in the game. Wall running and double jumping allow the player to move faster than most enemies can track you, and the linear levels feature enough verticality and large enough gameplay boxes in order for you to fully utilize the maneuverability options that are inherently unique to Titanfall 2's combat. It is incredibly rewarding to play, so much so that most FPS games that don't have this type of verticality-based gameplay feel significantly lesser than Titanfall 2. Like, the wall running and the ease of movement is amazing, and basically any game without it feels lacking. And when it comes to the mech battles, Titanfall 2 transitions to these giant robot fights seamlessly. Throughout the game, Titanfall 2 gradually introduces new Titan variants that fundamentally alter the way the player approaches mech combat. These loadouts feature different weapons and abilities that all have their own strengths and weaknesses, and they can easily be swapped out in order to complement your playstyle. The Titan sections are a lot of fun and are interspersed throughout the campaign very effectively. In most titles, even the coolest gameplay mechanic can overstay its welcome if there aren't any fresh ideas injected into the game at regular intervals. Yet, thanks to the abundance of Titan sections, Titanfall 2 does not have this problem. In fact, the Titan gameplay paces the title out incredibly well, and it prevents Titanfall 2's gameplay from getting staler than a 50-year-old bag of Doritos. While the wall-running gameplay is an enjoyably well-developed game design conceit, the Titan battles are interspersed throughout the campaign in a way that maintains Titanfall 2's positive pace and narrative momentum. And whenever Titanfall 2's bread-and-butter movement-based gameplay is about to feel older than Captain America, Titanfall 2 throws in an epic mech battle in order to spice up the proceedings, which always keeps the game entertaining and fresh. The game is expertly paced to a T and never becomes dull throughout its runtime, which is honestly one of the most impressive aspects of this entire campaign. Titanfall 2's pacing is further benefited by short-term game design mechanics later in the game. See, most shooters feature a defining set of game mechanics that the player utilizes throughout that respective game. For a few examples, the Max Payne series features bullet time, the Gears of War series has guns with chainsaw bayonets and an active reload feature, and Call of Duty is historically inaccurate as hell. But the thing about Titanfall 2 is that it flips this game design philosophy on its head. Several missions missions have their own game design uniquities, ranging from incredible action set pieces all the way to mission-specific items that fundamentally alter the gameplay. And there are two really good examples of this. In one instance, there's an electronic switch that activates and deactivates various devices that add a new platforming dynamic to the game. And in a couple other levels, there's a time travel device that allows you to time jump between the past and the present at will, which is a gameplay conceit you must utilize in order to navigate hostile enemy terrain and perilous environments. Both of these additions are great because they add new nuances to Titanfall 2's primary gameplay for obvious reasons, but the fact that they're limited to a few levels apiece is what impresses me the most. If this were any other game, these abilities would be a long-term core gameplay function that the rest of the game is built around, but in Titanfall 2, this most certainly is not the case. Despite being nifty ideas, the time shift ability and the platform switch are only available for a few levels apiece and are meant to add variety to the gameplay for a short amount of time. They were created to add a few new short-term wrinkles to Titanfall 2's movement-based combat rather than be a primary gameplay function, and as a result, these items never wear out their welcome and they're introduced at the most opportune time, which in turn helps pace out Titanfall 2's core gameplay very effectively. With these short-term items and abilities, Respawn Entertainment showed how much faith they had in their core gameplay. With the fluid combat and the mech battles, this veteran developer clearly knew they had something great and impressive on their hands already, and they knew that they only needed to add a few new ideas every now and then to make Titanfall 2's campaign a truly fantastic experience. The game really is very memorable. To be perfectly honest, the solo mode is close to perfect and only has a few blemishes. The campaign is on the shorter side, the collectible pilot helmets don't really add anything to the game, and the cloak ability doesn't last long enough to be all that useful. Yet these are only minor quibbles in what is overwhelmingly a positive experience. If anything, Titanfall 2's campaign always surprises and never overstays its welcome. It is incredibly well paced, and the fluid action is amazing. And honestly, if Titanfall 2 merely just consisted of a solo campaign, the experience alone would have been more than satisfactory. But of course, there is the multiplayer. As stellar as the solo mode is, Titanfall 2 was always going to be defined by its multiplayer. After all, the first Titanfall was exclusively an online multiplayer affair. It had no single-player story or campaign to speak of, and while Titanfall 2 inherently has more content than its predecessor due to its campaign mode, Titanfall 2's long-term shelf life is similarly due to its raucous, chaotic online multiplayer offerings that feature plenty of character customization, maneuverability options, and glorious mech battles. And it is awesome, enjoyable, and for lack of a better term, addicting. Titanfall 2 features various game types like a 4-player cooperative mode, capture the flag, territories, and team deathmatch, which are all admittedly fairly basic game modes that are present in most multiplayer shooters. Yet, Titanfall 2's gameplay execution is how the game differentiates itself from its competitors. Sure, these multiplayer modes are run-of-the-mill in most games, but Titanfall 2's mobility-focused gameplay, the verticality of the maps, and the epic Titan battles transform these mostly generic game types into one of the best FPS multiplayer action experiences that money can buy. No joke. The execution really is that remarkable. Let's use the Attrition game type, i.e. Titanfall 2's example of Team Deathmatch, as an example here. In Attrition, the player airdrops onto a map and must use their arsenal, wall-running prowess, and class abilities in order to kill the opposing team's players and various AI enemies. Killing these adversaries gives you and your team points, and as you accrue more scores, you earn a specific upgrade that works to your advantage. These buffs include amped weapon damage, AI turrets, exploding robot spider thingies, and many other items. And if you earn enough points, you can call down your Titan and engage in awesome mech warfare, all until your Titan is destroyed, causing you to need to do the whole rodeo over again. It is hella fun, especially when the match enters its later stages. The endgame in Titanfall 2 is a riot. While the early game where you slowly but surely accrue points is fun, the later game is reminiscent of a big kaiju fight. See, in the early part of the game, nearly everyone receives their titans around the same time span, which allows that stage of the match to be defined by epic titan battles, where one team inevitably turns victorious. But as matches extend longer, the amount of titans that one team has over the other becomes cyclical. The two warring sides essentially trade spots over and over again regarding who has more titans out in play and who is on foot, causing the teams without their giant mechanical firepower to take cover and formulate a strategy to combat the enemy titans. Admittedly, you are not defenseless. After all, you are automatically equipped with anti-titan weapons and can pull a Luke Skywalker type of maneuver by grappling aboard an enemy titan and sabotaging it. But make no mistake, the titans still outmatch the pilots head to head, which means the player must get crafty and creative in order to take the enemy titans down, lest the player gets plastered like a deer standing in front of a semi-truck on I-80. It is incredibly fun and always had me wanting to play another match, regardless of whether or not I lost the previous one. Admittedly, Titanfall 2's multiplayer could easily have been overwhelming. Alone, the game features many classes, weapons, mech loadouts, special abilities, and cosmetic options. And on top of the chaotic FPS combat and the mech battles, which are two very different gameplay styles, that is enough to cause a player to wonder where to even start to become good at the game, which is a very discouraging line of thinking in a long-term multiplayer shooter. But the thing about Titanfall 2's multiplayer is that it basically rewards the player for everything. And I mean everything. Titanfall 2's multiplayer is designed to give the player as much positive reinforcement as it possibly can. Whether it is killing the AI cannon fodder, the satisfying sound effect that pings whenever you score a kill, earning cosmetic and gameplay unlockables, how each weapon and mech loadout has their own level progression system, or how you can still earn points even after you've lost a match, Titanfall 2 gives the player positive feedback whenever possible. It keeps you engaged in the game, and as a result, Titanfall 2 is even fun when losing because it consistently delivers reasons for you to keep playing it. The fun really is evenly distributed like that. Because Titanfall 2 is a communism, apparently. And this encouragement is key. Many of the early goings are tough, and I'm not afraid to say that I got my ass beat multiple times, much to the shame of my family. But, with that being said, the fun engagement always entices the player to return for more. And as they keep playing, the player slowly but surely figures out which weapons, perks, and pilot and titan loadouts befit their playstyle. Over time, the player improves, and even when they fail, the game encourages them to keep trying. If anything, Titanfall 2 essentially inspires and prods the player to explore how they play the game. And as time goes on, kills and wins start to become more and more common. After a while, everything just clicks into place and the multiplayer just becomes a rollicking good time. With the exception of one major problem. The microtransactions are the only real issue with Titanfall 2's multiplayer. While the progression system never feels grindy when it comes to receiving rewards that affect gameplay, the cosmetic upgrades are a different case, seeing as they are doled out at an unrewarding pace. See, the microtransactions allow the player to use real-world money to purchase cosmetic items that alter their character's appearance in order to skip the work it takes to earn them. But honestly, this feels disrespectful to Titanfall 2's overall game design, because in every other instance, the multiplayer is rewarding and progression occurs at a good pace. Yet, the slow rollout of cosmetic items in Titanfall 2 are in opposition of these game design intricacies. Rather than complement the rest of Titanfall 2's great features, the microtransactions are meant to inflate the value of Titanfall 2's cosmetic items and make the prospect of spending money on them sound appetizing, even though it is unethical and sleazy. Microtransactions in a full-price game are abhorrent on principle, and Titanfall 2 doesn't get a free pass just because it's a good game, because the microtransactions within Titanfall 2 go against the game's core design, which kind of sucks, to be honest. But with that being said, Titanfall 2 is terrific. Whether we are talking about the well-paced single-player campaign or the rollicking multiplayer, the game is excellent and a complete package with minimal faults, and for that reason alone, you should buy and play Titanfall 2. And another secondary reason to pick up and play Titanfall 2 is to give Respawn Entertainment the motivation it needs to go ahead and develop Titanfall 3. With Titanfall 2, Respawn created a great FPS game with creative ideas that truly deserve to be fleshed out more in a sequel, which sadly may or may not happen. Sure, the free-to-play Battle Royale game Apex Legends takes place in the same continuity and breathed new life into the series, but damn it, it's just not the same. In a potential Titanfall 3, I'd love to see how Respawn innovates on their winning formula, and judging by the internet, I'm not the only one who thinks this. Admittedly, there is some good news here. Apex Legends creator Chad Grenier said he would be interested in helping make a potential Titanfall 3, and the publisher Electronic Arts stated that the choice to develop a potential sequel was up to the development team, and with that, all eyes are upon Respawn Entertainment to see what they do next. So that was another video. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, please, leave a like rating if you liked it, because it's a like rating. And also subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell so you're notified for whenever I post a new video, which will be probably in 10 years. Additionally, this video about Titanfall 2 was voted on by many of my patrons, so the link to my Patreon is in the description if you want to get in on that action. And speaking of Patreon, I just want to thank my high-tier patrons in Slasher Vales, Mom, Miles Nelson, and David Devlin. Thank you so much for supporting what I do. Love y'all.